Have you ever tried to build something like this? Or this? Or maybe even this? But instead, you ended up building some shit like this? Well, today, I, vectortheguy, the greatest builder in Minecraft history, am gonna try to teach you how to build some trees. Like these. They're not exactly masterpieces, but they might at least help decorate that world of yours that's been blown to shit by creepers.
First things first, before we actually start, there's a tool that basically does half the heavy lifting for us. It's Axiom. And no, this is not a sponsorship, unfortunately. If they ever feel like throwing money at me, my DMs are open. For building massive trees, mountains, terrain, honestly, I can't even imagine building without it anymore. I'm not going to teach you how to install it because, let's be real, there were already like 843 videos explaining that crap on YouTube, and if you've seriously never heard of Axiom, well, you probably live under a rock. But whatever. Relax, go install it later, and come back here. Most Minecraft trees follow this exact same pattern. Trunk, leaves, done. Congratulations, you just built a Q-tip. And look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you're just playing survival, sometimes all you really need is a tree. But if you're trying to build something fantasy, this just doesn't work.
So what's the problem here? The problem is that most idiots mess up right from step one. If you want eye-catching, fantasy-style trees, do not start with a perfectly straight vertical trunk. Look at these pictures. Notice how even realistic trees in our world aren't perfectly straight? Well, some of them are. But fantasy trees definitely aren't. Look at this. See how the trunk usually has a curve to it, kind of like an S shape? It looks a lot like your posture when you stand up and let your gut hang out. So, rule number one, so we don't screw this up, start by building your damn trunk properly. And here's another thought for you. Forget the idea that trees need to look exactly like real trees, because they don't. You're playing a block game. Don't just grab a reference photo and get completely stuck on it. Be creative. Play around with the shapes and colors, which is something we'll get into a bit later. For now, let's actually start with the trunk. Alright, let's start. The trunk. I always color code the different parts of my builds because I'm an organized and handsome guy. We're starting with red wool for the main body. I found this picture on Instagram. We're using it as inspiration, which basically means I'm gonna look at it for 5 seconds and then just do whatever the hell I want. So like I mentioned earlier, I tried to follow the basic pattern of our inspiration tree. As you can see in this image, I placed these points to roughly map out the path I want to follow. Just made a quick sketch of where I want the curves of the trunk to connect. So I dropped these red wool blocks to map out that S shape we talked about earlier. After that, as you can see in the clip, we're going to use the Axiom tool called Path. It lets you create a straight line between the points you click, or in this case, a line that curves as we click on our target points. Catmull Rom and Bezier are two great options for making our trunk. Catmull creates more aggressive curves, and Bezier makes slightly smoother curves. In this case, we'll be working with Catmull. As you can see in the image, I select Catmull Rom, set the thickness to 2, and I start clicking on the 4 points of the S shape I mentioned earlier. And just like that, we form our rough initial trunk. Since I clicked on 4 points here, the tool creates 4 small nodes that we can still adjust. You can click on each one and move them around in all 4 directions. You can also select a node and click on Override Radius to adjust its specific thickness. That is exactly what I did with the bottom one, making the base of the trunk a little bit wider than the rest. I tweaked each of them a little bit to get the exact shape I wanted. Take your time and do this carefully, because this is going to be the foundation for everything. To make branches for our trees, in this case, we're going to separate them into 2 types, thick ones and thin ones.
Why are you gay?
You always start by pulling the thick ones out from your main trunk, and always try to build them out in 360 degrees. Make sure they go in all directions so your tree doesn't end up with empty gaps. You can use the exact same tool we used before, and you can also use that same technique of placing blocks in the directions you want the branches to go. Or you can click on the main trunk and press the E key, which frees up the node so you can just place it mid-air. You can do this as many times as you want. Keep doing this and pulling the thick branches all around your tree, just like you see me doing in the video. Don't forget to keep adjusting your nodes and shaping them as you go. Another tip I can give you, remember that Override Radius tool I mentioned earlier? You should use it almost constantly here. The part of the branch that connects to the trunk always needs to be thicker than the tip. If it's not, your tree's going to look like an anomaly. After you have finished the thick branches, let's make the thin tips, which is where most of the foliage is going to rest. Once again, we can use the same tool, but here we are going to work with a different wool color. In this case, I used light blue. And for the tool settings, we are almost entirely going to use thickness 0, because obviously these branches need to be much thinner. Make an average of 2 to 3 thin branches coming out of each thick branch. That is the average I like to use. Use the same technique. Click on the branch and keep pressing E to place your nodes mid-air and spread your branches out. Here, you can do some fine-tuning with the nodes, or you can also place blocks manually, just like I did in some parts. Curve some of them slightly downwards, others slightly upwards, and you can leave a few of them a bit straighter. Remember, once again, try to really understand the dimension of your space. A mistake I used to make a lot with my trees back in the day was pulling branches kind of all to one side, or in just one direction, and I wouldn't even realize it. And later, when it was time to build the foliage, my trees would end up with these really ugly gaps. So make sure you spread these smaller branches out in a 360-degree angle as well.
While I'm working on these branches, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I post all my builds there, often with some pretty cool reels. Check it out and follow me over there too. And if you don't want to, then just close the video right now. I don't even want to teach you how to build trees anymore.
Before we move on to the next step, here is another tip. Manually smooth out any rough blocks or sharp edges. You need to have a good eye here. Fly around it and look at it from a few different angles. Try to make it look as polished and organic as possible. This will make a huge difference in how your tree looks, trust me.
So how do you make leaves for this shit? This is where things get a little rough, but whatever, let's go. First off, you need to know what kind of tree you are actually building. If you don't know that, you shouldn't even be at this stage. Since I am using a somewhat fantasy cherry tree as an example here, I already know it needs a more standard, rounded type of foliage. We're going to use Axiom's Shape tool, set to solid sphere, but we're going to play around with the dimensions. First, pick another wool color for your leaves. In my case, I grabbed pink wool. Now, click on Separate XYZ so you can adjust every axis of the sphere. For this one, I'm going to make the sphere a bit flatter because I think it fits the look better. Adjust the sphere however you want and make absolutely sure to check the Keep Existing box. This way, when you paste the foliage, the sphere won't just delete your branches. They will just stay safely buried inside the leaves. Start placing them at the tips of the thin branches you created, which in my case are the light blue wool blocks. Keep making fine adjustments. You can also mess with the rotation so they don't all look completely identical. Keep pasting the spheres, making some smaller and others larger. Try not to leave any branch tip without foliage, at least for this specific tree. If you have longer branches that stick out further from the tree, you can place the foliage with paste copy. Then just pull it one block down and one to the side and paste it again. This gives that section a much fluffier look and hides the branch a bit better. Do this on all the branches. After placing all your foliage wherever you want it, let's finally finish our trunk. Go to the mask tool and set it up exactly as I'm showing you here. Put all the blocks you use to build your trunk inside the OR parameter. After that, use the selection box, select your entire tree and hit enter. This will select only the blocks of your trunk. Duplicate them and move them to the side using paste select. Now, let's go to the noise painter tool. In this case, I'm going to paint my trunk a more reddish color, so I will be using mangrove wood. I'm using the default simplex parameter here, but like I said before, be creative and do some testing. Maybe I'm painting it red, but this tree would look way better with a white trunk and a completely different paint pattern. The possibilities are endless, and that is why we love this game, isn't it? Paint the entire tree. Here's another tip that can help you out a lot. You can do a sort of polish on your tree by using blocks with similar colors. In this case, I'm going to use materials from the mangrove palette, like stairs, slabs, fences, and so on. This is another situation where you need to have a good eye, and you only get better by practicing, so at least make an attempt. I started by placing some stairs to curve the trunk a little more. I also added some red stained glass panes on some of the edges to smooth out the corners. You can also use fences. Keep testing things out. One way or another, some corners will look better, others will look worse, and you just adjust them as you go. I'm just demonstrating it for you here. Also, try using them on the branches to make them look more aesthetic. Even though they will be kind of hidden by the foliage, the more details you add, the better your build is going to look. Once you are done with that, select the whole trunk and paste it back into its original position. Now, let's finish our leaves. Clear your mask and add a new one, exactly as I'm showing on the screen. Add the AND parameter. Inside it, put block equals air, and below that, neighbor equals the block you used for your leaves. In my case, that is pink wool. Now go back to the noise painter tool, but this time choose white noise. Leave only one block that matches your foliage, and then reduce the block amount to something around 10 to 15%. I think that's a pretty good standard, though like I said before, depending on the tree, it could be obviously more or less. After that, increase your brush size and paint over all the pink wool in your foliage. This will create a slight noise effect on your leaves, making it look much more natural, exactly how it should be. Sometimes you might notice that a piece or two still looks a bit too flat, but you can just fix those by hand. Once that's done, go to Mask again, clear everything out, and set only the pink wool as your mask. Select all your leaves again, go to Operations, Auto Shade, and set the palette to Custom. You can choose whatever palette you want here, but there is only one strict rule. Always place an air block between each color block in your palette. In this case, since my tree is a cherry tree, I'm going to choose a pink palette. I start with pink stained glass, and below that, I put an air block. My third block is pink glazed terracotta, followed by another air block, and finally, cherry leaves. I also like to set the dither to 1000 because the blocks will be nicely scrambled. Again, it really depends on the tree. For some trees, it's cool to make a gradient, but for this one, we're doing it this way. Keep the position set to player position, fly right above the tree, and click on Auto Shade. Look at that, we actually have a pretty cool tree now. You tell me, it is not as hard as it looks, right? With a tree like this, you can already start showing off to your friends. Now, if you're still not satisfied with the size or the amount of leaves, I will give you a really cool tip. Go to Mask again, set the OR parameter, and put all the blocks you chose to paint your leaves inside it. In my case, that's cherry leaves, pink stained glass, and pink glazed terracotta.
Now select the entire tree again and hit Enter, selecting all of your foliage. Click on Select, go to Expand, change the value to 1 here, and click on Expand.
Now, close that and press Ctrl+R on your keyboard. That's the command to replace selected blocks in Axiom. Set it to replace air with the main leaf block you used on your tree, which for me is cherry leaves. And there you go, you just made your tree even fluffier. Just don't forget to fly above the tree and apply your auto shade one more time.
You can repeat this process a few times, but keep in mind your tree will get fuller every time you do it. So for some models, this will actually look better, but for others, not so much. Just be careful not to let the tree lose its natural shape and become way too round, just like your gut. Now, another thing we can also do is add some roots. I made them using the exact same tool. I just made the roots small and a little short because I think it matched this style of tree a lot better. Then I colored them with mangrove wood too, and it added a really nice touch. After that, like I mentioned earlier, the more details and effort you put into it, the more eye-catching your tree is going to be, and that is exactly what I did here with the roots. I made them a bit more detailed by using slabs. And now, when your tree is practically done, do you know what is just as important as a beautiful tree? Look right here into my eyes. Yes, the environment it sits in. Do not build such a well-crafted tree just to drop it in an empty void with nothing else. The surrounding environment and decoration matter a lot too.
Now that you have learned at least the basics, so you are not a complete donkey at building trees, I am going to show you how, from here on out, it gets much easier to come up with and build other fantasy tree ideas. I will show you how I created this other model right here. You can see that for the trunk part, our premise is going to be very similar. It starts with a curved shape, just like we started the previous cherry tree, and from there on, we just attach the branches. Here, the only major difference I made was that I pulled the smaller branches so they curve upwards a bit more, and I decided to fit the tree and its roots into what looks like a rock. You can already notice that the roots here are also bigger and more spread out. I started by making the rock it is going to sit on. After that, I made the trunk using the exact same tools and characteristics as the one we did before. Then I started adding the thinner branches using a different color. After that, I polished up the blocks that were sticking out too much and made the trunk look a bit more organic. The biggest difference with this tree is that here I actually built the foliage piece by piece myself. I did this using the Axiom Shapes tool. I set it to flat and used the regular polygon format, so we get this sort of triangular shape. But I separated the XZ axis and kept tweaking it until it looked like a stretched triangle. Then I just kept pasting and rotating them into each other to form this slightly irregular circle of triangles. I wonder if that sounded way too confusing. Well, the important thing is that it worked. And I also pulled some hanging strands down using the path tool. I made only two models, a smaller one and a larger one. So I took these models and started fitting them onto the tips of the blue branches. I would place maybe two of one model, then another two of the other. I made sure to rotate the model a little bit so they wouldn't look exactly the same in rotation either.
After placing all the foliage, I built the roots as if they were clinging to the piece of rock, and after that, I did the exact same process as before.
I put the blocks I used to build the trunk into my mask, copied it to the side, and painted it with auto shade using the following palette: clay block, diorite, and pale planks. Then I added all the detailing to the trunk using slabs, fences, and so on. After that, I just moved the trunk back into its original place, selected my foliage, and replaced all the magenta wool with cyan glazed terracotta. And there you go. Obviously, you could add more detail to the foliage here. Maybe placing some light blocks would give this tree a really nice charm, but I was feeling lazy, so I just left it exactly like this.
Congratulations! If you made it this far, you are probably not building giant toilet brushes anymore. Well, at least I hope so. I will quickly show you how I made the last tree so you do not stay curious. Obviously, I am not going to show you everything. The trunk and branches are done the exact same way we did before. I just made this one slightly larger than the others so it looks more imposing. I made the roots really big and closer together than the previous ones. After that, I colored it using only 2 colors to give it a different and fantasy vibe: block of amethyst and purple bricks. Now comes the interesting part. Its foliage is just straight strands hanging down, as if they were hanging vines, but again, in a magical fantasy way, not just something generic. So how did I do it? After making the entire trunk, I placed several dots of lime wool as markers. I put several of them on all the branches, especially on the tips, and I did this all around the tree. After that, go to Mask and set the AND parameter. Set block equals air and above equals the material you used for the dots, which in my case is lime wool. After that, select the brush tool with sphere selected and increase the size a lot so it covers the whole tree. And here you just have to click over and over again. Every time you click, you place one block of lime wool right below the other, creating your foliage. After that, just put only the lime wool block in your mask, select everything, and apply the auto shade. In my case here, I used a palette of birchwood, calcite, and pale oak planks for the foliage, with the dither set really high. One last thing I also like to do is whenever I create a tree, I like to make one small model and one larger model. You can make them very similar using the exact same techniques, just make one bigger and one smaller. This gives you more variety to use in your maps and builds. Sometimes you build a survival house, for example, and a smaller tree fits the environment better. But if you build a huge castle or a kingdom, sometimes you might need larger trees. So, I hope I have helped you better understand how fantasy tree creation works. Remember that I only showed you a few examples, and I'm going to give you a challenge. Try to build the trees the way I showed you. You can try to copy them, but just to get the hang of it. The cool part is that I gave you the ideas, but the most interesting thing is for you to exercise your own creativity. Try to think outside the box, make different types of foliage, play around with the colors, and so on. If you come up with good ideas using my examples, you can send them to me on Instagram, and I will be happy to check them out. Maybe if this video reaches 100 likes, I will release the download for these trees for you guys here. So share it with a friend and subscribe to the channel. Or just keep being a chubby guy who doesn't know how to build trees. Thank you very much. I will see you next time.